Hello, BookTube. I come to you today with a wonderful tag. The guys at Strip Cover Lit came up with an original tag called Badass Poetry 101. and they dressed in aviator shades and they carried shotguns to stress the badassery of poetry. I wholeheartedly agree with that aim. I have no aviator sunglasses and I have no shotguns. So for my badass points, I thought I would show you this. And the badass points come from the fact that many years ago, when I acquired it in South Central Los Angeles, it came to me from its original owner, who did not give it to me willingly. So we'll start with number one. Sylvester Stallone, a self-made original who's been doing it for decades. What is the first poem you remember? Well, for me, that would be the Bible, and specifically probably the Psalms. So I thought I would read you one, as tedious as that sounds. This is Psalm number 19, and it is rendered into English by Joseph Addison, who was, among other things, a book reviewer. The spacious firmament on high, with all the blue ethereal sky, and spangled heavens, a shining frame, their great original proclaim. The unwearied sun from day to day does his Creator's power display, and publishes to every land the work of an almighty hand. Soon as the evening shades prevail, the moon takes up the wondrous tale, and nightly to the listening earth repeats the story of her birth, whilst all the stars that round her burn, and all the planets in their turn, confirm the tidings as they roll, and spread the truth from pole to pole. What though in solemn silence all move round the dark terrestrial ball? What though nor real voice nor sound amid their radiant orbs be found? In reason's ear they all rejoice, and utter forth a glorious voice, forever singing as they shine, the hand that made us is divine. Question number two is Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's easy to be captivated by Herculean stature combined with boyish charm. I'm gathering from this statement that the guys at Strip Cover Lit are not aware of Arnold Schwarzenegger's height. And I'm not going to shatter their illusions, since they've got guns. What is your first favorite poem? Well, for me, that would be Horace. The Roman poet Horace, who I love, and I love him in part for his adaptability. He is so eager to be what you need him to be at any moment, and I thought I would read you something that demonstrates that. This is from the first book of Odes, and it goes like this. O lovely girl, whose bloom outshines thy lovely mother's fame, to ocean give my angry lines, or cast them in the flame. But know that neither rapt Apollo, nor he who rules the bowl, nor Ceres' priest with timbrels hollow, like wrath can shake the soul, whose direful might and sword can fright nor floods, nor fires, nor Jove, descending on our blasted sight in thunder from above. When man Prometheus made from clay, in fashioning each part, the lion's rage he stole away, and fixed it in his heart. 'Twas wrath that hurled Thyestes down with heavy overthrow. 'Tis wrath o'er many a mighty town that drives the plowman's foe. For me, while young, that wrath beguiled in furious rhymes to range. But satires wild to songs more mild my melting muse shall change, while thou thy passion laid aside with vows of amity shall hush the urgings of thy pride and back return to me. If you didn't hear anything happy and approachable in that poem, it's because you were instead hearing the wild wind of the heath. And there's a reason for that. That was rendered into English by the Bronte you don't know. That was Branwell Bronte, the brother of the Bronte sisters, who shared every bit in their thorny, prickly genius, but killed himself with alcohol before he could do anything masterful with it. And it goes to show you that Horace will answer for anything. Number three, Bruce Lee, The Standard. Hard to argue with this level of excellence. What is the greatest poem you've ever read? And for me, the short version would be Ovid's Metamorphoses. Or the long version would be Ovid's Metamorphoses. But the short version, comes as no surprise to any of you, would be Lord Tennyson. Specifically Ulysses, his poem about the character Ulysses from the Iliad, who goes to Troy, fights for 10 years, then tries to get home and wanders for 10 years more, longing the whole time for Ithaca. And the conceit of the poem is that when he gets there and stays there, occupies his throne, he finds that he has developed a sweet tooth for wandering and can't get it out of him. The poem opens with him being unhappy. It little profits that an idle king matched with this aged wife. Among these barren crags I mete and dole unequal laws unto a savage race that hoard and sleep and feed and know not me. And he decides to go a-wandering again, late in life, with a crew of old friends. And the poem ends like this. Come, my friends, 'tis not too late to seek a newer world. Push off, and sitting well in order, smite the sounding furrows. For my purpose holds to sail beyond the sunset and the baths of all the western stars until I die. It may be that the gulfs will wash us down. It may be we will touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides, and though we are not now that strength within old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, one equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. Little Tennyson for your day. Moving on. Let's see here. Jackie Chan. Starring in approximately 4 movies a year since 1920s, it's impossible to avoid the Chan Man. What poet have you read the most? Well, despite the premise of this question, I have never actually seen a Jackie Chan movie. Although I would have a morbid curiosity in the urban rumor that he had just wrapped a movie about being a heroic window washer on the World Trade Center right before September 11th, 2001. I don't know that there's any truth to that story, but I would love to find out. But for me, the poet I've read the most is Shakespeare, just by repetition. The poet that I've read most by inclination would be Horace. I go back to him all the time. Then number 5 is Jerry Crews, an underutilized potential superstar. Who is a poet you'd like to read more from? No idea who Jerry Crews is, but the poet August Kleinzauer, who is alive. I'll strike all of you as a little bit surprising, but it's true. His poems always intrigue me when I come across them in various periodicals. I've always meant to get a big book of them and read through. Question number 6, Charlize Theron, a woman whose presence and authority goes unquestioned out of sheer badassness. Who is one female poet you think deserves more attention? Well, I don't know about deserves more attention, but in terms of badassery of holding her own in a man's world, I always think of Dorothy Parker, who was an active poet, but is disregarded as a serious poet because so much of what she wrote are ditties, doggerel. I kind of like them. There's one here called Superfluous Advice. Should they whisper false of you, never trouble to deny. Should the words they say be true, weep and storm and swear they lie. That kind of stuff is neat. I like that. Next one is Donnie Yen. I swear, people never heard of Douglas Fairbanks? Errol Flynn? Anyway, a supernova in a foreign action scene. Whose ageless poetry are you familiar with only through translation? My go-to answer here is the Tang poet Li Po, who I think now is stylized in English as Li Bai. I'm not really sure. I don't keep up with it. It seems like it changes every decade. But I've never read him in the original. I've only read him in English translations, and they're always wonderful. I have one that I always do here, Drinking Alone in the Moonlight. Beneath the blossoms with a pot of wine, no friends at hand, so I poured alone. I raised my cup to invite the moon, turned to my shadow, and we became 3. Now the moon had never learned about drinking, and my shadow had merely followed my form. But I quickly made friends with the moon and my shadow, to find pleasure in life, make the most of the spring. Whenever I sang, the moon swayed with me. Whenever I danced, my shadow went wild. Drinking, we shared our enjoyment together. Drunk, then each went off on his own. But forever agreed on dispassionate revels, we promised to meet in the far Milky Way. Now that is by Elling Eide, E-I-D-E, and as good as it is, it gives me the strong impression that the original is better. I've heard the original in Japan. I've heard it sung many different tunes. I know that there are dimensions to it that English can't convey, and I would like to know what they are. And the last one is Christian Bale. He's Batman. What's the best poetry collection you've ever made it through? Well, for me, that would be the Oxford Book of English Verse. The Helen Gardner edition, not the Quilla Cooch edition. And that's it. That is the Badass Poetry Tag 101. I'm hoping the 101 means we get more. And I'm sorry for the length of the video. Poetry will do it if anything will. So there you have it. Poetry to brighten up your day. Thank you, BookTube.